Welcome back to another episode of Full Retard. Today we have more entitled parent stories for you. First up, entitled father thinks I am incapable of making decisions about mine and my son's life because my husband died. By Mars Echo. My entitled father has never been an involved parent. He is always at work or sleeping, yet he has always believed he can make better decisions about my life. After getting married, having a child, and moving out, we saw him maybe 2 to 3 times a year. My husband battled cancer for 9 months before dying, leaving me and our son 5. Entitled father wouldn't visit for the first 7 months because my mom stayed with us to help us out. His parents didn't want to, but that is a different story. My parents are divorced, and my entitled father refuses to be in the same room as my mom, even if it is a matter of life and death. My mom went home at the 8th month mark, so my dad and his girlfriend decided to visit once a week for an hour. And they got it in their head that they knew everything and could make decisions about our lives. They tried to force our son to call his girlfriend Grandma, even though he said he did not want to, because she was telling everyone that her sister-in-law was dying. He was not her sister-in-law, and she barely knew him, and she was being such a good grandma. So it looked bad to her friends, and when he wouldn't call her grandma, and they tried to force religion on him, even though we told them not to, and our son's counselor told him not to. He is very confused. He is 5. His daddy was dying. This resulted in him saying he wanted to kill himself so he could visit daddy in heaven, because he didn't understand that he wouldn't be able to come back if he did. My dad is not religious, but the girlfriend is. Then my husband's parents convinced them that my husband hated me and wanted a divorce and to spend his last month living with them, despite my husband telling them it was a load of crap. But nope. My entitled father tried to convince me that my relationship was bad and I should let my husband move in with his parents, even though he didn't want to, and disowned his parents. For the last month of his life, he was in the hospital. COVID rules meant that I was the only visitor allowed. Even if I left the hospital, they would not be allowed to visit. They refused to believe this and threatened to sue me in the hospital for keeping them away. Once my husband was declared critical, he was allowed to have other visitors to say goodbye. But he told the doctors to not permit his parents or my entitled father, and that he only wanted me there. Again, this was my fault. An entitled father said it shouldn't be my husband's decision because they had the right to see him. Luckily, the hospital kept them out. After he died, my entitled father and his girlfriend tried to force me to allow my late husband's parents to see our son, even though they never had an interest in seeing him before. My husband didn't want them near our son, and they referred to me as that bee my son never should have married, and tried to force me to give his parents things that belonged to my husband because they deserve it more than you and your son because they were his parents. And they want me to sell our house because they don't believe I can take care of it by myself, and they can't see how they have done anything wrong and why I told them they can now only have supervised visits with my son. Next up, entitled parent tries to steal $25,000 from her teenage daughter by The Dreams Rule. Let's go, since some of you all are saying my stories don't add up. Hit by a car, 12. Suicide attempt, start of diagnosis being hidden, 13. Bashed for not sharing food, 15. Hades' death, 16. Entitled mother demands to know if I'm having sex, 16. A few days away from my 17th birthday, sister demands to name baby, 17. You all. Final entitled parent story about my mother. You all. Let's go. Yes, my mom was a person, no CPS, didn't do anything. So, for some background info, when I was 12 years old, I was hit by a drunk driver while crossing the street. I managed to survive with a few stitches and completely busted legs. Entitled mother refuses to take me to get physical therapy because she didn't think I needed it. Anyway, so the case went on, and I was awarded $25,000 that was supposed to be with the bank getting interest. Well, at 16 years old, I moved out, and after getting treatment for some of my trauma disorders, we finally made the big step and called the lawyer. No bricks. So the lawyer told us that a few months before my mom contacted her asking to have the money put with her bank. Now that seemed fishy, so the lawyer asked for my email address to contact me to make sure this is what I wanted. Well, surprise, surprise, I didn't know about it. The lawyer essentially gave my mom a big F-U. After the lawyer told us the story, she said, "In all my years, I have never had a parent try to steal a kid's money from getting hurt. Leave it up to my mother to be one of a kind in the worst way." Next, entitled mom tells her 5-year-old, "You were in every family outing at a pumpkin patch. It's now a family tradition to say this to a family member if they're acting out or something goes wrong." By Haunted Dreamer 78. Sorry about formatting, posting from smartphone. Also, conversations are as close as I remember, except for the title of the story, as we will never forget that sentence. Okay, so I come from a large family, and one of the things we enjoy is getting together to take the kids to the pumpkin patch, and then meet up at my big sister's house for stew, carving, and dessert. We've missed doing this the past 2 years, but that's another story. This happened, and I want to say about 2012-ish. My family had all met up at one of our local pumpkin patches, and we were standing in line for kettle corn, hot dogs, hot chocolate, and caramel apples. You know, pumpkin patch snacks. Most of us had already finished with finding our pumpkins and decided to grab snacks before getting lost in the corn maze. While we're standing there, we hear this woman saying things very loud. "You are unbelievable! Knock it off!" etc. We all just kind of looked at each other like, uh-oh, someone's in trouble. But we won't see where it's coming from right away. I then look over and see my best friend, we'll call her Amy, with her daughter, we'll call her Heather, 10 years at the time, in tow, kind of rushing towards us with this crazy look of WTF on her face. I notice she doesn't have their pumpkins yet. Aw, couldn't find any good ones? OMG! No, we stopped looking because it was getting crazy over there. Huh? What do you mean? Looking at Amy says softly, "Mom, can we get pumpkins later? You know, like after they leave." "They" was whispered, even more followed by her giving a quick glance back to the area they just left. Amy to daughter, "Sure, sweetie." Then she looks at me and says in a hushed tone, "There's some lady over there yelling at some little girl. I think it's her daughter, but the girl is just crying that she wants some other pumpkin her dad got." Amy then continued to tell me that this little girl can't be more than 5 years old, and she just keeps saying, "No, I want Daddy's pumpkin," to the entitled mom. But entitled mom is not having it. Apparently, the child was firm and kind of soft-spoken at first, and the mom seemed like she was trying to hush the situation. But when the girl wouldn't give in, entitled mom lost it and started yelling things like, "Knock it off! You just quit already!" Both Amy and Heather were standing fairly close to them, and when entitled mom lost it, it made Heather jump and rush to Amy for protection. Amy told Heather, "Let's go find Haunted Dreamer 78 and see if she wants to help us pick one out." Heather agreed, and they rushed over to me. I looked down at Heather and asked if she wanted to do the corn maze first, and then we could get her a pumpkin. She was happy about that. Then I asked if she wanted a hot chocolate and started asking her if she wanted to go stand with my mom and my little brothers, so she didn't get bored standing in line. When we heard entitled mom start yelling again, this time she was marching past us, dragging her little one by the arm. No, not literally dragging. We would have stepped in if we saw that. So she's pulling her daughter out of the pumpkin patch and heading towards the exit and parking lot. All the while, she's making these loud grunting exasperation noises, and my whole family is watching on, trying to figure out what's happening. To be honest, everyone at the patch within earshot of this woman is watching. Then it happens. She pauses slightly in her grunting rampage towards the exit long enough to look at this 5-year-old child and says, "You run every family outing," and then continues toward the exit. We all just look at each other in shock, and then something else, perfect timing, happens. My son, 12 years old at the time, wasn't looking where he was going because he was distracted by the entitled mom as well. Trips slightly on a bale of hay and drops his hot chocolate on the ground. I look at him and with a huge smile on my face yell in the most obnoxious entitled mom voice I can muster, "OMG, you run every family outing." All I could hear was laughter. I looked over at entitled mom and she was frozen in place for a minute before turning red and running out of the parking lot. No one clapped. It was just funny to those who witnessed her behavior, and yes, my son laughed too. He knew I was not serious. So now it's a family tradition to use this phrase anytime our family is together and something happens. My sister burnt the stew one year. I forgot a Christmas gift at home once. My son tripped and knocked a gaming system over, turning it off. Pretty much anything going wrong anytime gets this phrase. It just never gets old. Edit. My significant other just reminded me that both he and his brother were saying this to each other very loudly for the rest of the day at the pumpkin patch. Entitled Mom was in earshot for at least one of these. Finally, Valentine's Day Incident by Chris Profess 1991. Episode 4 of my series on my entitled mother. This one is rather short. About 10 years ago, when my sister still thought that a woman's sole goal in life was to find a man and have kids, a model still promoted by her mother, she ended up single a few months before Valentine's Day. She was desperate to find somebody, the special someone that would make her a real woman. The three of us were sat at the kitchen table when my sister said, "Mom, do you think I'll ever find someone?" And our mother to answer, "You're not that ugly." Me in my head, "Gee, thanks, Mom." Side note, my sister is beautiful, and correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't parents supposed to find their children beautiful? Edit, my sister tells me it was 5 years ago, not 10.